All right. So, in this episode of Debunking the Myths, we're going to be looking at disability hate crime. Disability hate crime is one of the most serious crimes is one of the most serious crimes in the United States, affecting millions affecting millions of innocent Americans with learning disabilities. From rape to arson to assault to domestic violence, disability hate crime comes in every form. What most people are not as a disability rights advocate, I've regularly as a disability rights advocate I've regularly dealt as a disability rights advocate I've regularly dealt with varying levels of disability. I've as a disability rights advocate for the Community for Interracial Solidarity and City Equity USA, I've regularly dealt with I as a disability rights advocate for the Community for Interracial Solidarity and City Equity USA. I've regularly dealt with violent I as a community for as a disability rights advocate for City Equity USA and the Community for Interracial Solidarity, I've regularly dealt with varying levels of disability hate crime. It's throughout my adult life, throughout the past 5 years, I've seen how throughout the past 5 years, disability hate crime has affected my life. And now, it is time that the general that the American it's time that the American public and Texas lawmakers it's now time and now it's officially time that Texas lawmakers and the American public take a stand against disability hate crime. It is it, and In my adult and in my adult life, I regularly dealt with varying levels of disability hate crime. And as well and as far as I as far and I've seen how disability hate crime affects people. It can lead to other pe- to it can lead to it can lead to other people it can lead to other people becoming perpetrators of disability hate crime. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, a person can be a caregiver can be prosecuted for disability hate crime. As of 2023, the number of the countless number of caregivers of disability caregivers prosecuted for disability hate crime is astounding. You you can help stop the number. You can basically help stop the number of disability of stop the number of people. You can basically help reduce as a disability rights advocate, my goal is to help reduce the number of disability hate crimes in Texas. And now and now in 2023, my goal is to help is to and as someone who's regularly witnessed disability hate crime, my goal is to not let future generations of Texans with learning disabilities be victims of disability hate crime. My goal is to end is to break the cycle of disability hate crime and get and get perpetrators and help prosecute perpetrators of disability hate crime. There are various signs of disability hate crime. such as depriving an individual of food, such as depriving an individual of food, verbal and physical, that there are various signs of there are various signs of disability hate crime, such as depriving an individual with disabilities of food, verbal and physical abuse, and um and sending threatening, and there are various signs of disability hate crime, such as phone and social media harassment, depriving an individual of food, and even such as stalking, phone and social media harassment, and even verbal and physical abuse, and even depriving an individual of a person with with a disability of food, which are all things that have happened to me. So in my adult life, I've had all of those things happen to me. And my goal is to help the people who did that, is to help is to get the Denton County judicial system, the Denton County criminal courts, to prosecute the individuals that did that to me. Is to get the Denton County criminal courts to prosecute the individuals who did that to me. And so there are various things you must watch out for. There are various things you have to be careful. And so, and what I've really come to realize is like, what I've really come to realize is like, what I've come to realize is like, what I've come to realize is, what I've come to realize is the last two places I was at which were in Denton County, were not what they said they were. Both of those places disability hate crime against me. Both of those places were disability hate crime perpetrated were perpetrators of disability hate crime. And so, as a person who's been a victim of disability hate crime, I've prepared myself to take action and put the perpetrators behind bars. And because I still have a lot of strength left in me. I still believe in I still believe in fighting hate, seeking justice, and getting compensation. I believe that by getting compensation, and by seeking justice, fighting hate, and obtaining compensation, I believe that person can overcome their fears and overcome trauma, can overcome trauma, seek justice, and fight hate, and obtain compensation from people who mistreated them. So and so I know that one day the state of Texas will prosecute all the people who have who have who have perpetrated disability hate crime against me. Because under no circumstance should the people that perpetrated disability hate crime against me be allowed to walk free. And I've seen how people have acted, and I've seen how people have acted, I've seen how people have acted in certain situations. It's not pretty, and I've really seen how, disability hate crime affects people. It's just like how, I mean, I know for a fact that, like, when people have witnessed, I mean, given all the stuff I've witnessed in my adult life, I've, now become a more observant person. I've learned to, I've learned to be more observant, and I've learned to take action against individuals who I believe are not worthy of working in ICF and HCS group homes. And I've definitely learned, one thing I've definitely learned is to not, is to not, um, is to not let, is to not let, is to not let, is to not let, um, people get in my way. Because when people do get in my way, they will, I've learned to not let people get in my way. Because when people get in my way, they just, they just literally they literally, because when people have gotten on my bad side, I tell them, you've messed with the wrong person. Because some people, because the past two places I've been at, they literally messed with the wrong person. And now they're suffering the consequences of their actions with me not being around. And now I know, don't don't believe everything you read. Sometimes, 'cause sometimes, I think I believe sometimes I know exactly why people do. Because sometimes I now realize why people do what they do. Why the people I was around at the time did what they did. They were only doing it they were only doing it to make me angry, and they were only trying to provoke me to the point of aggression, and they just didn't know me like that. They just didn't know me well enough to want to help me. And it's because these people just had, their own ideas of how things should work. And they were willing to do anything to make me angry enough to want to hurt somebody. In other words, they were seeing how I would react, and then they were trying to basically get a reaction out of me which is a crime in its which to me is a crime in itself. Something I didn't have to put up with. Not now, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You know, I mean, how can someone say to me that they were trying to help me when they may have not been trying to help me at all? You know, the last two places I was at, they weren't, in my opinion, they weren't trying to help me. They weren't even making a consolidated effort to help me. They were just they were holding necessities, they were just holding necessities back from me so they could, so I would, they were holding necessities back from me. They were holding vital, they were holding vital necessities back from me. So I would report them. So so I ultimately, I was basically Innovative Steps was holding food for me. So I would, I would call the state on them, and I would ultimately leave, and I would ultimately alienate myself from Innovative Steps. But now, as you can see, I had to leave Innovative Steps because of that, for that very reason. But now I know for a fact that, like, the people in Innovative Steps cannot be trusted. If I had stayed at Innovative Steps, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have succeeded in life. I wouldn't have been as happy as I am now. But now that my case manager James is left, I'm a lot happier now because my case manager James was extremely loud. He would he would he would, like, every day, every morning, he would laugh extremely loud, and it would scare me. And let my case manager James would laugh extremely loud, and it would scare me. And I couldn't stand having James around because James would laugh extremely loud, and it would scare me. And I had to, I had to do something about it, come hell or high water. But now I feel free spiritually, and I feel free emotionally. And I feel like, with James out of the way, I'm not as fearful as I used. I'm not always on edge. I'm not always constantly worrying about when James will suddenly fly off the hook and laugh and suddenly have a sudden and will suddenly just have a sudden uproar of laugh, suddenly laugh at the top of his lungs, which is something that would scare me. Now I'm constantly worrying. I was worried that court, I'll have to call the administrators at the Res Care Denton office And now I'm not as worried about it. I mean, now I don't have to worry about James constantly being disruptive and unruly, which to me was, a crime in a crime in itself, given the fact that I live, that my group home the group home I'm in now is, in a is in a is in a populated neighborhood, which can be all the more catastrophic, you know, given the fact that like the neighbors don't literally didn't know James. The neighbors in the neighborhood I'm in now just, didn't know James, and they could have literally called the cops if they had heard James being that loud. They could have called the cops, and James could have gotten arrested for and James could have literally gotten arrested for and James could have gotten arrested for disorderly con for James's ass could have gotten arrested for for being disruptive, and for mainly for scaring for causing the neighbors to feel unsafe in their own homes. Honestly, I wish the neighbors had called the cops. I wish the neighbors had called the cops on James for the amount of noise he made. I just wish they had, because maybe if the ne- hold on, I'll be back. Honestly, I wish they had. I wish the fucking neighbors had called the cops on James for all that noise and all the noise he made. Because if the neighbors had, then James and the cops would have dealt with James. And they would have told him it's not okay, that making that much noise in a populated cul-de-sac is not okay. Yeah, and James would have definitely lost his job. Yeah, 'cause I'm just saying, like most of them that like James would have definitely lost his job. Okay, I'm back. Because so like I was saying, with all the noise that James made, like James is lucky that the neighbors didn't end up calling the cops. Because if the neighbors had called the cops, then James would be in jail right now. James would probably be in jail right now. He would be facing charges of disorderly conduct and criminal mischief. And He probably end up getting he'd probably end up getting a year in county jail, and then who would want to hire him? I mean, like, but then, like, if James had made that much noise at LifeWork, had it had made that amount of noise, that much noise at LifeWorks, where there were people who had sensory issues, James would have definitely lost his job. It's not it's making that much noise is not professional. It's not how is not professional. And so all I'm just saying is like, when you work in an ICF or HCS group home, like the one I'm in now, you have to be professional, and you have to understand that, like, or even if you work at the LifeWorks group homes, you can't make that much noise. You can't be noisy like that, because LifeWorks has people who have sensory issues, and you can't be noisy like that. Like, it's why a lot of people well, it's why a lot of some it's why several clients have been kicked out of LifeWorks. But there have been clients at LifeWorks who have been kicked out for have who have been kicked there have been clients I know for a fact there have been clients at LifeWorks who have been kicked out for being disruptive like that. And I'm just saying, if James ends up going to work at LifeWorks, you know, I'm just gonna let Weebu know that James has a history making making has a history of loud and excess of making unreasonable amounts of noise, and to be very careful, and that if James makes any amount of unreasonable noise, just call 911 and have James removed from LifeWorks. And I would also recommend that Weebu press disorderly conduct charges. And I would also recommend that Weebu have James prosecuted for disorderly conduct. So, because if James goes to work at LifeWorks, and he ends up getting in trouble for, and he ends up getting in trouble for disorderly conduct, you know, I'm literally not going to be able to help James. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything for James. I'm I'm not going to bail him out. I'm not going to be able to bail him out of jail. Like, I'm literally not going to be able to pay his bail. And I'm not going to hire him a lawyer. Like, I'm literally not going to hire James a lawyer. Like, besides, I don't have that kind of money anyway. I don't have the kind of money to even hire James a lawyer if he were to start working at LifeWorks and then end up in trouble with the law for disorderly conduct. So, James is gonna have to learn that he can't go to a place where there's people with sensory issues and just start screaming and hollering and laughing real loud and just acting a fool. Because, if James gets in trouble at LifeWorks for doing that shit, if James ends up at LifeWorks and he does that shit, what is he gonna expect me to do? I am not gonna vouch for him. I'm just gonna tell James that actions have cons that though that I'm just gonna let James know that the reason he lost his job at LifeWorks is because actions have consequences. And, I'm just going to let James know that I'm going to tell James, the reason you got fired from your job at LifeWorks is because you were scaring scaring people at LifeWorks and getting other clients at LifeWorks riled up with the amount of noise you were making. And so technically, I'm not going to help you anymore. You're just going to have to figure that out yourself. And I'm going to tell James he's just going to have to figure that out the hard way. And if someone at LifeWorks tried to beat him, if he tried to provoke a fight, and if he literally ended up provoking a fight at LifeWorks, guess what? I'm gonna let I, I'm gonna let I'm just gonna let that person. I'm gonna let that LifeWorks client beat James up. Yeah, and if James gets arrested for putting his hands on another LifeWorks client, guess what? I'm not gonna bail James out. I will not bail James out of jail. I'm gonna let I'm gonna just let LifeWorks prosecute James for I'm gonna let LifeWorks prosecute James for assault. I'm just gonna make sure. In fact, I'll make sure James gets prosecuted for assault. I won't even care if James claims it was in self-defense. I'll make sure that trust me, I'll go straight to LifeWorks and I'll make sure that the police take James out of LifeWorks in handcuffs. And I'll make sure that James gets prosecuted for assault. I'll even see to it myself. So, people are just gonna have to learn the hard way. Last two places I was at are gonna have to learn the hard way. That they could pull that shit with other people, but they were not gonna pull that shit with me. Yeah, the previous places I was at can understand that are gonna have to realize that they could pull that shit with other people, but they were not gonna pull that shit with me. And trust me, like with Avid, if I have to call the state and have my ex house manager Adam, and have my ex house manager Adam terminated, have my ex house manager Adam's employment at Avid terminated, I will, and I'll personally be there in Little Elm when my house manager Adam is, and I'll be there when the state. Yes, so trust me, I'll personally be there. Turn off the rest of these lights if you're not using these lights. All right. Now. Right. Sorry. No, I'll see to it myself. 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 I'll fucking see to it myself. I'll see to it myself. And I'll fucking watch the state. I'll fucking watch the Texas state troopers fucking fucking escort Adam out of the group home out of the out of the Lakewood Trail group home in handcuffs. And I'll fucking watch as the state throws all of Adam's stuff in the garbage. Because don't think I can, because I will. I can, and I will. It's like with Sandra. Don't think I can have. I can also have Sandra arrested. I can also have Sandra prosecuted. I can also have Sandra prosecuted for her actions. I can not only can I have Adam prosecute my ex-house manager Adam prosecuted for his actions, I can also have my ex-house manager Sandra prosecuted for her actions as well. You know, don't think I can, because I'm letting my subscribers know right now. I can and I will if I have to. And if it comes down to that, I'll personally go to Little Elm and watch as Sandra and Adam are placed in the Texas State Trooper cars and hauled off to jail. And I will personally see, and I will not bail, and I will not provide their bail. I will literally not bail Adam and Sandra out of jail. I will personally ask the Denton County criminal courts to charge them with a disability hate crime. And I'll make sure that Sandra and Adam are put away indefinitely. So, and I don't care what innovative steps and Avid I don't care what innovative steps and Avid say. I don't I really wouldn't care what innovative steps and Avid say. And for me, it just wouldn't matter what innovative steps and Avid say. Innovative steps is as equally guilty of disability hate crime as Avid is. The same can be said for Devereaux, DNS, and Mary Lee. Devereaux, DNS, and Mary Lee are also as equally guilty of disability hate crime as Innovative Steps and Avid. And this is and I'm not making this up. So, because I've seen human behavior at its worst. You know, I've literally seen how, and like I said earlier in the video, I've seen how disability hate crime affects people. 'Cause you think I would let people I would let someone get away with that shit? Forget it. I can make sure that, you know, that I'll make sure that, you know, because, I see it, if you are, because the way it works is that, is that, you know, is that since Adam was working for Shelley, Shelley is technic is that since the P is that since since there were people working for Shelley who perpetrated those disability hate crimes against me, those the people who at Avid who perpetrated those disability hate crimes are technically guilty by association. You know, Shelley and her the people Shelley and her and the people at Avid who perpetrated the disability hate crimes against me should be put away indefinitely for disability hate crime. And I realize that human life is valued to the almighty dollar, and the almighty dollar is what keeps this country running. And it just makes me sad to think about this. And I realize that, and I realize that the Americans with Disabilities Act is what is what really shaped. And I now realize that, the Americans with Disabilities Act is what really shaped, it is what is the true backbone of of people. Is like I real and what I realize now is that, I mean, even though I didn't realize it like a long time ago, even though I didn't realize it a long time ago, I realize now that the Americans with Disabilities Act is the backbone of disability rights in this country. it's what literally created places. It's what literally helped created places like, it's what helped create places like Avid. And still, Avid just thinks they can get, like, Shelley Clark and her people just think they're free to do whatever they want. And and Shelley Clark just thinks she doesn't have to, abide. And Shelley Clark thinks she's just free to do. And once again, Shelley Clark just thinks she's free to not abide, to not. She's just and Shelley Clark just and once again, Shelley and her husband just thinks they're free to violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so, it's such a goddamn shame that Shelley and her husband just think they're just free to violate the Americans with Disabilities Act as much as they damn well please. And I now realize that Innovative Steps is just as free to do the same. I mean, I realize that, like, as much as I resent Innovative Steps and Avid now, I just wish I had said something early on, and maybe I wouldn't be in this situation. Maybe perhaps I wouldn't